United States is facing a refugee crisis that's being called anything but that. Thousands of unaccompanied children from Central America are crossing into the US and getting stuck inside a system that is as unprepared as it is overwhelmed. So why are these kids coming into the United States, and how is the government responding? In 2014, President Obama said the country was facing an urgent humanitarian issue. He was referring to the almost 102,000 unaccompanied children who were expected to approach the US-Mexico border by August 2014, about 11,000 in June 2014 alone. And about 75% of them were coming from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. So why would this be a refugee crisis and not just an immigration headache? Because it's not just poverty the kids are escaping, and it's not just family that they're coming to join. According to a 2014 UNHCR report, 58% of the migrating children interviewed reported having suffered or been threatened with serious physical harm. Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador are in the world's top 5 countries for homicides. This means these kids are migrating to survive, and that means under international law, they could qualify for international protection and asylum. And this crisis isn't slowing down. In 2015, the number of children migrating from Central America has only increased. In October and November of 2015, 10,000 children crossed the US-Mexico border, twice the amount of children crossing during those months in 2014. So how exactly is the United States responding to the crisis? Well, we're still trying to figure it out. In Central America, the US government is running ad campaigns that tell people that the journey to the north is too dangerous. In September 2014, President Obama also approved a plan that would allow children living in Central America to apply for refugee status while remaining in their countries. This is, of course, intended to discourage their migration. But of the 4,600 kids who've applied, only 11 have gotten refugee status. The US is also paying the Mexican government tens of millions of dollars to restrict people, whether from Mexico or Central America, from crossing the border. And Mexican authorities were, for a while, successful. But when kids do get to the US, what happens? Well, Mexican children are turned away at the border, and Central American children are taken into Border Patrol custody. Border Patrol then hands them over to either Homeland Security or to the Health and Human Services Department, where the Office of Refugee Resettlement takes over. ORR has a few thousand beds in shelters across border cities, where the children will stay for usually around 30 days, before they're either placed with a family member in the US or placed into foster care. From there, the kids enter an overwhelmed US immigration court system. Those lucky enough to have lawyers receive better outcomes, and some don't ever make it to court. Of the kids who do show up to court, almost 80% are allowed to stay, but they're not given legal status, they're not refugees, and they're not given juvenile visas. In other words, once their case is closed, they're just not actively deported. They're left in a sort of limbo. So with the sheer numbers of kids continuing to flee to the US, when is it time for us to start calling this a refugee crisis?